The evidence supports the view that we have lost a whole civilization from our historical record. We are a species with amnesia.
So we're going to have to forgive universally and move to this creative moment as a species.
We, humans, are creating what is called the sixth mass extinction of life.
Peace comes from a different place. It starts by seeing within others and within ourselves that which is not selfish, but is brave and generous and idealistic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Shaman Podcast. I'm here to share with you a wonderful day to be alive here. My name is Alex Lipton and I'm just so grateful to have you here. Welcome to the Video Shaman Podcast, everyone. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for watching this on Spotify and also on YouTube. You can go to the Video Shaman channel on YouTube. You will find it there. I've got some episodes only available on Spotify that are audio only, and then I post some on YouTube. So I'm trying to, I got to just keep getting into the habit of doing video. Spotify algorithm sent me a video or a notification yesterday saying, we miss your videos. So you know what? I took a little prompt from the AI. Take it for what you will. We're all getting prompts from the AI right now. It's pretty crazy. But I wanted to just come in here and have a little chat, getting into the habit of doing one of these, trying to do one every day now. It's all about consistency, repetition, consistency, motivation. It's so easy to get distracted in this world and to procrastinate. I am very, very guilty of procrastinating in so many different aspects of my life over the years. And I'm feeling a new groove. I'm feeling it's not even new as much as it's a renewed groove because right now I'm also undergoing a health metamorphosis. I've been in ketosis for about a week and a half now. I've done keto before, and I'm feeling really good. Definitely the brain now is no longer dealing with all the cravings of the sugar coming from the carbohydrates, and I'm enjoying the eggs and bacon. But I did have an experience earlier this year in a shamanic state, if you will, to be more vegetarian. And, you know, there's a story now that I'd like to share. We talked a little bit about some biblical stuff in the last podcast with Abraham and his son and also Noah. But there is an interesting story in the Bible known as Cain and Abel. And there are plenty of ubiquitous interpretations of this story. But the first time I was exposed to it, when I was younger, I grew up a Roman Catholic. I am not a Roman Catholic anymore. I don't consider myself a Roman Catholic. I consider myself more of a Gnostic philosopher, if you will. But anyway, the first time I heard of Cain and Abel was when I was younger. There was a little book that I had called My Bible Stories, and it was a children's book that mostly had pictures of the basic Bible stories. And I remember the story of Cain and Abel. Something goes a little like this. God demanded a sacrifice, which, again, little indication, like very, very interesting. God demanding sacrifices. And the sacrifices specifically from Cain and Abel, I believe it was Abel who sacrificed a lamb, slaughtered a lamb and offered it to God. And Cain offered a bunch of fruits and vegetables. And that's the reason I remember it that way, is because in that book, My Bible Stories, there was a picture, a little illustration of Cain and Abel standing next to each other. They both had like a little altar. Abel had like a dead lamb. I remember the tongue hanging out the side and there was blood. And he was like looking up to the heavens, and there was the God beam of light shining down on his sacrifice. God favors the sacrifice of the lamb. And then there was Cain on the other side with his little pillar, and he had some fruits and vegetables. I remember the picture of Cain was just sitting there just brooding at Abel, just like, yeah, I'm jealous. God favors his sacrifice more than mine. You know, and that was really the whole thing of, and then Cain ends up killing Abel, and you know the story. If you know the story, that's kind of how it's interpreted. It's about not taking any shortcuts or whatever. But I'm not gonna even indulge you with the traditional way of looking at it. The way I look at this now is that this was a direct reference to who the administration, the Elohim, or gods plural, that God in the monotheistic religions is referred to. In my last podcast, I discussed the idea that it wasn't just one God. It was actually a multiple gods or multiple beings that later on over time became lumped into one God. So anyway, there was the leader of the administration favors human sacrifice or favors animal sacrifice, eating meat versus eating vegetables. So that's like when I think of Cain and Abel, I'm thinking of, okay, well, this is a propaganda story to get people to steer away from being a vegetarian and focus on getting your sustenance from eating meat. So, you know, I think about that now because right now in ketosis, I'm much more focused on protein, fat. I know there's ways to do ketosis as a vegan. I haven't tried it, but I'm still in this mode. And like I said, I had a vision, a shamanic experience, if you will, earlier this year that I felt a strong like divide, like ripping apart. Like there was something trying to pull me away from eating meat. And you know what? I think there's really no particular right way to eat anything. There's no right or wrong way to do anything. It's more about the intention and the energy that you're associating with whatever belief or whatever action you're doing. So another little thing that makes me think about is how sugar is really bad. You know, that's a thing that we're starting to learn now in medical science, that obesity and diabetes, all these metabolic syndromes are actually due to the consumption of refined processed sugar, which is in everything. Even the refined processed carbohydrates and grains and stuff breaks down into sugar. So we're just like constantly getting sugar, and we're starting to see that fat is not necessarily as bad as we thought it was. This is what the foundation of ketogenic diet is all about. If you eliminate the sugar and you eliminate the carbohydrates, then you start eating the fat and your body starts to metabolize. It's like a more efficient fuel system. But that being said, the idea that sugar is really bad for you, I mean, I try not to. I don't really eat a lot of sugar. I like sweet things, but now knowing this, I just avoid it. I read the book Food of the Gods by Terence McKenna last year, and there is a whole story about how sugar was introduced into the population, that it became like a drug for people, and it still is today. There's no metabolic function to sugar. It's not nutritious in any way. It's metabolic, but it's not nutritious. It's essentially just a kick. It's a high. It gives you an energy, but it's as we're seeing with diabetes and obesity and everything, it might actually be responsible or at least very deeply correlated with these problems. But anyway, that being said, it's like, is sugar the problem, or is it how we use the sugar that's the problem? In this factory farming world, in this system where everything is completely in sugar and we're not conscious of what we're eating, we're just eating it like we're a machine. We got to put fuel into the machine, so we consume stuff. But there's no thought, there's no consciousness, there's no spirit, there's no energy, there's no belief associated with it. That's sacred, because nothing is really sacred in this world, in this scientific, materialistic, religion of scientism, Western world we live in. None of that stuff matters. It's all completely irrelevant, as Uncle Bruce would say.
Irrelevant.
Why is this relevant? Uncle Bruce talks about my Uncle Bruce, Uncle Dr. Bruce Lipton. If you haven't heard of him, check out his book, Biology of Belief. Go to brucelipton.com. I am a little biased. He's my uncle, and I do work with him to create videos on YouTube. You can check out that YouTube channel as well, Bruce Lipton channel on YouTube. All those videos we create on there. The intent is to entertain people, but also to educate people through comedy a lot of the times. So anyway, the whole idea about sugar being so bad and causing these problems, you know, you can have a bowl of Fruit Loops. It's not going to kill you, but over time, it might cause problems. But Uncle Bruce tells this story about how there are people in the Deep South that are very like evangelical religious people that will get together. And I'm sure you've seen videos of this. If you watch The Righteous Gemstones on HBO or on Max or whatever it's called now, you can see these kind of like a little caricature of these people. And it's not so much a caricature. Like they get all riled up and they dance at the tambourine, be like, oh, coming down of Jesus on the, and they're like handling poisonous snakes and they're biting them. And they're in this actual video you can watch online of these guys drinking strychnine poison. What happens is they get into such a deep, ecstatic state of religious joy and passion that no matter what, God will protect me. God is protecting me. This is their conviction in their small community there. They are so deeply convinced within their system that God's going to protect them that they drink literal poison and nothing bad happens to them. Nothing bad happens to them. They're drinking strychnine poison, yet they're not getting poisoned because of their belief in that God will protect them. So this unshakable conviction that they are safe, they are protected, that no harm can come to them, they will drink the toxic shit and survive. So with that in mind, think about sugar. It's like what is sugar then? It's like if people can drink poison, literal poison, and be okay because they have associated belief to it, why is sugar killing us? Why is sugar making us sick? Because of the belief, because of the association to this, because of all of the energetic entanglements that we have with sugar or our lack of attention into what we're consuming. It's almost like we're consuming dead matter. As human beings, we are alchemical quantum computers. We take food, we take stuff from the environment, we put it into our system, we eat food, we drink water, we drink other things, and we eat stuff. And when it comes through the system, it metabolizes and turns into life force. You know, we poop it out and piss it out later. So it's not literally lead into gold, but in a way it is. It's almost like we're not recognizing that the magic that is the human body and our ability to completely transform the so-called material world into energy and life. You know, like we are life creators, but the creation is happening within. We don't see it through our eyes in the outward world as much. You know, we can learn lessons about it, but the real magic, the real creation is happening within us all the time. All the great wise masters throughout ancient times and all the times really have always said that the answers lie within. I think it was Jesus who said that the kingdom of heaven is no bigger than the size of a mustard seed or something like that. You know, the idea is that like heaven is a state of mind. Heaven is a consciousness. Heaven is a field that is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You know, heaven is everywhere. If we just were to recognize it and see it, then we would actually be it. So I think that when it comes to taking care of our health, the most important thing, besides making conscious choices on like which food is more toxic than others and being organic and blah, blah, blah. But what if you can't buy organic food? There are food deserts out there. To just go out there and tell people, just make a different choice. Just buy organic food and it'll be better. There are so many people that don't have access to that. All they have are these refined, processed, disgusting, just toxic Nazi food, I would call it. So what about those people? Oh, sorry. Too bad. Too bad.
Too bad.
No, it's more personal than that. It's more empowering than that. The idea that if you have a consciousness and associate it to what you're consuming, you can actually change the function of that. Because it's all about energy. Everything is alive in a way. A lot of indigenous cultures talk about that God or a great spirit creator is in everything. Like the movie Pocahontas. I got to get a little audio button for Pocahontas singing about this, where it's in the rivers, it's in the air, you know, in the animals, and everything is conscious. So when we're living in harmony with nature, we're not walking around separate from nature, like trudging through the environment. We're actually interacting with God or the universe at every moment. So even food itself is conscious. This is the idea that's going to be so hard to grasp for people that are atheists or for scientific materialists. But if you can understand that this is not just an old indigenous philosophy or way of life, this is actually new science from quantum physics. Everything is energy. Everything is emanating from a single source, a field of consciousness, a field of energy. like whether it's the chicken or the egg, which one was it? Well, both exist within the field. So if we start to recognize that and do something, here's something you can try. I do this from time to time, and it really, number one, makes me giggle a little bit because it seems silly and you can have fun with it. But number two, there's actually legitimate science and ancient wisdom that backs this up. Okay? When you're about to eat, when you're about to do something, when you're about to, let's say you love Pepsi and you're about to have a Pepsi, before you open the Pepsi, as you're opening the Pepsi, talk to the Pepsi like it's another person. Say, "Hi, Pepsi. Oh, I see you. Oh, it's so good. I'm so happy. I'm so excited to drink you. And I see you." You can, like praying, when people pray before they eat, it's kind of like that. They put out a really good intention into the field, or they pray to God that God will bless them, or that thank you, gratitude for all this stuff. That's really good. Putting a positive intention to something is really good. So if you're about to drink your Pepsi, like it's good to like this, don't tell it like it's an inanimate object. Think of it as a two-way street. That Pepsi is listening to you. So say, "Hi, Pepsi. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you. And I hope I see that we're gonna be bonding here in a moment. And I just am so excited that we're gonna be fulfilling a vision of health together." Like a positive intention. But without even, it takes, I'm still getting used to that whole thing of like praying or putting a positive intention into the field, having a sense of higher purpose when you're making a vocation, an invocation, if you want to look at it in pagan Wiccan terms. It's a practice. It's a practice to be able to be coming completely from your heart. Over time, I know if I were to try to make an intention on the spot, like, okay, it's your turn to say grace before the meal. Like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? It's all about coming from the heart. It takes a little practice to just kind of like drop down into that place and speak directly from here as opposed to from up here. But it's okay. It takes practice. But in the meantime, at the very least, all you have to do with your Pepsi, here, with my espresso at this moment. Hi, espresso. I actually haven't done this yet today, so I'm going to practice what I preach. Hi, espresso. It is so nice to see you. I see you, like Avatar. I see you, and I appreciate you. Thank you. I think that's all you really need. I think that there's so much life in our environment that is conscious, that is aware, that has all of the ancestors, all of the past, present, and future simultaneous existences. Like everybody you ever known is everywhere all the time. And it's speaking to us through the environment. And oftentimes we just aren't listening. It's constantly speaking to us, and we are just not listening because we haven't been looking for it. We have a belief system that says that none of it's alive. The only thing that's alive is like organic living creatures. So why am I going to talk to a cup of espresso? I remember back in college when I was researching telekinesis and getting into the real hippie consciousness of levitating things with my mind. It's like I remember looking at a book of matches and I'm like, levitate. And this is where this idea about having a relationship and talking to it, not commanding it, but talking to it came in, because I had this thought occur to me when I was trying to command or tell the matches to lift. I had this funny thought that occurred to me. What if, the matches looked at me and be like, wait a minute, did you even ask me if I wanted to levitate? You're telling me to levitate, but did you even ask me? And that made me laugh, because then it just, I must have been smoking weed at the time, but I looked at it, I must have been thinking I started having a conversation with a book of matches. And of course, it's like, no, who knows? I don't think it's relevant whether or not I was actually talking to the matches. I think the most important thing to recognize is that it was a great exercise in using my imagination. Using the imagination is where great ideas come from. So, and other things, all the creativity, having an imagination is so important. So that taught me something. It's not about me doing something to the environment, lifting the matches or drinking a cup of coffee. It's more about the relationship between these things. It's all about the relationship. And there's actually a movie in the movie Phenomenon with John Travolta. He had this exact experience when he got, definitely check that movie out if you haven't seen it. It's an older movie, but he ends up getting like, you know, a small town guy ends up getting these special powers from kind of like a alien unbeknownst thing. And he gets smarter and more intelligent and wiser, but then he gets these abilities and he's able to like use telekinesis to move a pair of sunglasses around. They're like, how are you doing that to the sunglasses? And he says, I'm not doing anything to the sunglasses. It's more of a dance. It's more of a partnership with the glasses. See, I think that's really the key here. So when it comes to health and diet and wellness, even smoking cigarettes, think about it. We know that cigarettes cause cancer. If you smoke a lot of cigarettes, you'll cause cancer. But there are these strange anomalies where there are people that have smoked packs a day up until their 90s and never got cancer. So why is that? I think it has something to do with the belief. It has something to do with the intention, the conscious, the program running that's associated with that. I've seen so many times. I have a specific circumstance. I remember in 2012, there was I was living in Los Angeles, and some friends of mine were standing out on the fire escape at this warehouse we were living in, and they were smoking cigarettes. And I remember going out and I was going to smoke a cigarette too. But I came out, and oftentimes I'm sure you've come across this. If you see people smoking, the conversation inevitably comes up. Man, I really got to stop smoking these. These are really bad for me. I know. One day I'll quit. Oh, I quit before. It's just constantly reinforcing this belief and this notion and this, that based on, evidence and experience and all that the cigarettes are bad. I remember coming out there and I grabbed the cigarette out of their hands and I said, I'm sorry, cigarette. Don't listen to them. You are really nice. It is them who is fucked up. You just be yourself. And I am so happy to smoke you. Thank you so much, cigarette. Did it for a little bit of a comedic relief, but it's been part of this building concept in my experience that it's more about the relationship. If we're going to do things that could be harmful or risky, we need to have a consciousness, just like those people in the deep south that have a consciousness when they're drinking poison and being bitten by toxic snakes. That is just unshakable conviction that they are going to be okay. If we have a strong belief associated with it, it may make a difference. It may make a difference. At the very least, it'll alleviate stress, which is the most important thing. Whether or not it's going to do anything or not do things into the future, it's like, okay, that's not the point. The point is to reduce stress. When we're under stress, we have inflammation. When we're under stress, we're not thinking clearly and we're operating from our subconscious programming. So that's another reason why it's super important. If you have the ability to eat organic and to be mindful about the ingredients of the foods you're getting that are not toxified by these horrible institutions like Monsanto, Bayer, the pharmaceutical industry. Like if you're living in this world, you're running your life from the subconscious. So most of the time we are operating on autopilot. So we can't be mindful all the time. We should strive to be, but it's like we can't be in that state of mind like those people drinking strychnine all the time. We can't. So in the meantime, we should be putting things into our system that at least we know are not going to hurt us, like smoking cigarettes. If you're not going to be like having a sacred experience every time you're smoking, like just understand it's like, hey, this can cause harm if you're not paying attention to it. So same thing goes with sugar. Like cut that shit out. But don't be afraid of it. Don't associate it with stress. Just make sure that what you do, you're putting a positive belief on it. This is another really important thing to recognize, is that we really ought to be focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want, because our attention goes in one direction. And whatever we're focusing on, that is what we will manifest. No matter how much in our intellectual thinking we may be like, no, I don't want this. All of subconscious mind recognizes want this. I want this. It doesn't understand the I don't part. I don't want this. That's a nuanced thing. And the perfect way to demonstrate that was in the movie Inception. with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they're talking about the mind and inception, how you can get into people's consciousness without their awareness and program their thinking. Talked about this on a previous podcast with mentalism, but they say, okay, I'm going to do a little experiment. Don't think of an elephant. What ends up happening? Of course, you think of an elephant because there's a command involved, that is all that matters to the subconscious mind. So we need to be focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want, because oftentimes those are completely opposites. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. Who does want to be sick? I don't want to be sick. Well, that's okay and that's good, but what's the opposite of that in this example? I want to be healthy. And even furthermore, you say it not like it's in the future, you say it like it's now. I am healthy. I don't want to be sick is the opposite of I am healthy. That's where we need to be taking our consciousness and the way we're thinking about all sorts of things, especially when it comes to our sustenance, our nutrition, our beliefs associated with all this stuff. And that leads me back to my last slide here is the idea of consistency and repetition. It is extremely important to do this. You know, especially if there's a goal, if you're not where you want to be and there's a goal where you want to be, it is absolutely important to be repetitive, to be consistent, stay focused, you know, have some sort of routine that allows you to kind of create a new program. That's one of the ways to create new subconscious programs. It's through repetition. And it's actually a steadfast way to just chip. It's like chipping away at something enough that eventually it becomes automatic. Just do a little bit every day, just a little bit every day, as opposed to a little here, you know, and then wait a little while and then like a lot here and then a little there. And it just becomes so inconsistent where I think, you know, from personal experience, at least, it's a setup for failure. It's a setup for sense of failure. And then that discourages from actually accomplishing anything, or at least getting motivation. The last analogy I'll use in this final slide, what this is like is putting one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas at the same time. Really, the way you're supposed to drive a car is just with one foot. You put your attention on gas and then you let go. Okay, now I got to slow down. I'm going to put my attention on the brakes. That's what allows you to go in an easy manner. But if you're using both feet, you're going to be kind of stopping and going. You know, if you're a little here or you're a little there, you know, if you're out of balance, really, you got to be, it could fuck up the car. So that is our human bodies a lot of the time. So I just want to say thank you and for your time and for following me on YouTube at Video Shaman channel. Like and subscribe, hit that notification bell. And I would so appreciate it. Also on Spotify, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm also on Spotify. You can check out the Video Shaman Podcast on Spotify. You could write to me at alex@videoshaman.com if you have any questions or you'd like to come on the show. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have some guests on here. We have the technology. We have the technology. The technology is only part of it. We need the wisdom. We need the spirit. We need the will to just be here and do it at the same time. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Again, this is the Video Shaman Podcast. Thank you so much.